This podcast is brought to you by Deepbridge Capital LLP. Deepbridge is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Please note that investments discussed are both illiquid and high risk and won't be suitable for all investors and should be considered as part of a diversified portfolio. The content of this podcast should not be construed as financial or taxation advice. We recommend investors seek appropriate professional financial advice. Any views expressed may no longer be current and may have already been acted upon. Welcome to this latest Deepbridge Discovery Podcast. My name's Andrew Aldridge. The idea of these podcasts is to bring to life the people and the companies behind what we do here at Deepbridge. To that end, in this episode, I'm delighted to welcome Shannon Beattie, who is CEO at GenoME Diagnostics, a university spinout from Queen's University in Belfast, and a part of the Deepbridge Life Sciences SEIS and EIS. So Shannon, welcome. Great to have you on board.
No, thank you very much for the invite. It's good to be here.
Great to see you. So we always kind of try to start at the beginning with these things. Can you just tell us a bit about GenoME and how it came about?
Yeah. So GenoME is focused on developing novel tests for early detection of diseases which are in dire need of improvement.
Okay.
So our first product in development is a novel blood test for early detection of ovarian cancer.
Okay.
So kind of going back to the start, GenoME is built on over kind of 10 years of academic research from Professor Mullen's lab in the Patrick G Johnston Centre at Queen's. And it was primarily by the three key founders, Paul Mullen, James Byrne and Laura Feeney. So their research was kind of with the aim of improving the diagnosis of ovarian cancer patients. So they were focusing on identification and validation of biomarkers for early detection of high-grade serous carcinoma. Okay. So it's the most common and aggressive form of ovarian cancer. And they were looking to use kind of cutting-edge techniques to detect an accurate signal from a small blood volume.
Okay.
So ovarian cancer, like most cancers, shows much better overall survival rates the earlier that the disease is detected.
Yep.
But with ovarian cancer, unfortunately, most cases are diagnosed kind of late in the disease progression, really kind of when symptoms are at advanced stages. It's called the silent killer. Okay. So they kind of, the founder team were fascinated with kind of developing ways to improve the chances of detecting this aggressive disease earlier.
Is that why they started with ovarian cancer, because it is the silent killer, and that's kind of a big challenge for them, I guess? Yeah,
it was really in need of improvement, and there hasn't really been much improvement in kind of ovarian cancer diagnosis kind of for decades now. Yep. So it was one that was in real need.
Yeah, brilliant. And what was your background, and how did you get involved?
So I'm much more from the academic setting background than the commercial. So that transition's been a good learning curve.
A lot of challenges for you.
Pardon? Oh.
A lot of challenges for you.
Oh yeah. Lots like learning a new language, but it's been good.
Good.
I was studying my PhD in Professor Mullen's lab alongside the ovarian cancer work. So I was looking at a particular type of breast cancer, which also has poor survival rates, and it's much more likely to spread than the other types. So as I was finishing my studies, the ovarian cancer work was selected for the iCure pre-commercialization program. Okay. That was delivered through Queen's. And I was very lucky to be selected as the early career researcher for the program. So it was sort of kind of 3 months of quite intensive travel and conferences and trade shows kind of across the world, performing customer discovery and market validation and networking, and getting feedback from potential partners and collaborators and competitors.
That must be fascinating.
It was. There were so many interesting conversations and kind of interesting people to meet. And it helped kind of shape our product development as well. So it was really, really useful program. I highly recommend it to everyone.
So you kind of heard it from the coalface, if you like. Kind of experts around the world were telling you exactly what they need and what they want.
And kind of what people would look for the company and from the product and what it needs. It was really helpful.
Fantastic. So kind of GenoME's kind of key milestones to date. What have you been up to? What have been the key successes to date?
So we've had kind of a couple of key funding and award milestones. So we got our first grant funding with the Innovate UK grant. That was kind of a follow-on grant from the iCure program, and closed our first round of investment last March. And it kind of really allowed us to get off the ground and make our first hires with our fantastic team, kind of get our own equipment and really start progressing the technical and the commercial milestones. And we were awarded 50,000 from Institute Ireland seed corn competition and 50,000 from Women Innovation Award within IBK. So this allowed us kind of to progress further and enhance our technical development as well. In terms of the technical development milestones, we have doubled the number of biomarkers on our patent. So that's kind of really elevated the IP value of the company and also increased the clinical and commercial utility of the test.
And it kind of validates it to you that you're doing the right thing, I guess, because in any startup, you need those kind of validation moments that actually you're on the right track and you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, no, definitely very reassuring and kind of on the similar vein. So we've a key milestone for us was that we were able to validate and combine our top markers into one test. So that really kind of increases our population coverage and the accuracy of the test. And then also kind of reduces the cost for the end user and the amount of sample that's required. So we've now shown that this had a 99% accuracy in a small tissue cohort and was able to detect samples at stage 1, which was very exciting. So we're now working to validate this in blood samples.
So kind of you mentioned about users there and kind of the cost to the end user. Who are your users? Who are you selling to? Who's your kind of target market?
So our target market will be healthcare laboratories, kind of private and government funded as well. So we will our end aim is we will supply the kit, and then the doctors will request the test, and the laboratories will run the test.
Yeah, brilliant. So nothing ever goes in a straight line. Nothing's ever plain sailing in this world. Kind of what have been the key challenges you've faced today?
In the liquid biopsy space, a key challenge which affecting a lot of companies is the low amount of DNA in the blood. So in that circulating kind of DNA, we're looking to get the tumour part of that, and that can be less than 1% of that small amount of DNA that's there. So it's really, really minute amounts that we're working with, particularly in the early stages of ovarian cancer, and sometimes can be quite hard to detect. So that's kind of challenges that we're looking to overcome at the minute, and that's what we're working on.
So is that where the test then works? That basically works on the DNA to assess kind of any early stage cancer within the patient?
Yes. So we're looking for a test to be a blood sample and to kind of be as minimally as invasive as possible. With ovarian cancer at the minute, quite a lot of kind of women will be referred for further testing that don't have ovarian cancer, can be elevated in a lot of conditions. And those women can often go for scans and for biopsies as well. So we want our test to be as minimally invasive as possible and reducing those false positive as well. Kind of reducing the stress for patients and their families and the healthcare providers as well.
And for you personally, I guess, it is very rare to find somebody such as yourself who's got the academic skills and the commercial skills to run a business and grow a business. I mean, it's it's an impressive kind of combination when you come across it. I mean, what challenges have you faced personally, kind of making that step into the commercial world, if you like?
It's definitely been a steep learning curve. I think, I've had a lot of support, and the team's been great as well, which has been fantastic. I'd definitely say that surrounding with the right mentors and support is a massive help. Probably in academia, it has to be perfect and it has to be absolutely kind of 100%, whereas kind of in commercial, we're looking very much further forward into a very, very big picture. So I think it's being able to see where we want it to go with the results we have at the minute.
And I guess taking the kind of the scientific results you get and assessing the commercial market for that and the commercial need for that, rather than just saying, this is great science, this is actually something that we can actually drive forward, I guess. I
think that was something that I was, whenever I was offered to come in in the iCure program, definitely jumped at the chance of it. It was something that kind of working in cancer research, it was very evident that there's a lot of fantastic research that has a lot of difficulty kind of taken from the lab bench into the clinic and into benefiting patients. And I thought this was a great opportunity of kind of the technology and the science had a fantastic potential to be able to actually benefit patients.
Yeah, brilliant. We talked about the support and things. I mean, what kind of support have you had kind of personally as an organisation? I mean, you're based within Cubis, we're based within Queen's in university. Kind of what support and kind of how does that look like and kind of what's been the value to you of that?
Yes, we're a spinout company from Queens, and we're supported by Cubis. So we've been able to avail of office and lab space in the Queens campus in Belfast, where the research was founded in that lab. So that's been fantastic and has really helped us to get off the ground. And we're also moving into our own dedicated spinout space, which will be great and will kind of enable us to continue to grow and scale. And they've been really helpful in getting kind of initial introductions to investors and supporters, which has been great. And our other investors as well have been really supportive in making key introductions, which is so useful, especially at the early stages. We've
in terms of Cubis and Cubis's support, kind of how do they support you? I know that you've got a lot of support around you.
It's been kind of guiding at the early stages as well of what we needed to do to get set up and what we needed to get in place. And then the big one for us was the lab space and being able to kind of being able to avail of equipment that we wouldn't have been able to afford at the early stages. And then the key introductions to some of our kind of key teams. So our Chief Business Officer, Chris, came in as the business mentor with the iCure program. And our Executive Chair, Mark, was introduced through the Cubis connections. And they both have a lot of experience and have been great additions to the team.
No, brilliant. And in terms of kind of the other support around you in Northern Ireland and kind of the ecosystem. I mean, I saw you recently when I was over in Belfast, and we were working with some other startups and what have you. And what does that ecosystem look like in Northern Ireland and Belfast in particular?
I think Northern Ireland's a great place for companies to start up. I think the life science ecosystem in particular is very vibrant and growing. And for somewhere so small, there's a lot of kind of world-leading expertise in a really wide range of areas. I think there's definitely a lot of companies starting up at the minute and also looking to grow and scale into the EU, US and beyond. And I think that's very exciting. I think there's a lot of opportunities for support and networking that's offered as well. I've found that people are very generous with their time and kind of offering advice and mentoring, and that's been really, really valuable. And we've had good kind of engagement and support with Innovate UK and Innovate UK Edge team in Northern Ireland and Invest NI, and given us a lot of kind of support and training in areas we were less experienced in, which has been particularly good in that kind of transitioning from the academic to the commercial role.
And I think from our perspective, when we come over to Belfast, it is really refreshing to see the collaborative approach taken within the area. I mean, you mentioned a few BOs there. You talk about the likes of Catalyst and people like that as well. There's such a strong ecosystem of support available, which from our perspective is great, and one of the reasons why we're so keen to support more Northern Irish-based companies, because you've got that support there, you've got that ecosystem, whether that be funding support from the likes of Clarendon and people like that, and what have you, Invest NI and things, but also that practical support and mentoring, etc., that you alluded to, and from our perspective, that's really refreshing, because I don't think there's many regions of the UK that have that level of support that you do, which is great from our perspective and hopefully great from yours as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think people that have been through a similar journey are always very keen to help and kind of offer any advice, and it's really useful.
And I think just kind of, and a lot of our kind of listeners to the podcast will be aware of Elasmagen, one of our other investee companies based in Scotland, and Dr. Caroline Burrell there, who's an extremely impressive founder and CEO, and you've benefited from some of her mentoring as well.
Yeah, no, Caroline's fantastic. Yeah, so she's the entrepreneur in residence at Queen's. So I've had a few chats with her, and she's so impressive, and she's very kind of very honest and very she's so refreshing to talk to, and is always kind of come out very motivated. Again,
somebody who's been on the same journey as you, going from the academic into the commercial world, and again leading a company very very astutely and taking it forward.
Yeah, no, they're very, very, very successfully. She's led that forward. So she's fantastic to chat to. Yeah.
So, kind of, what are the next steps, and what's the next phases for GenoME going forward?
So our next steps would be kind of our first key ones to validate our ovarian cancer test in the plasma samples. Once we have that, we're engaging with a manufacturing partner at the minute as well to develop the physical kits, which will then look to kind of complete our necessary validation and documentation to file for CE marking to bring our ovarian cancer test to market. we'll also kind of initially bring in the ovarian cancer test to market as a disease monitoring tool. So alongside this, then we'll be performing the validation to assess the ovarian cancer test in the diagnostic setting.
Okay.
And our longer term ambition is to develop the ovarian cancer test as the first screening tool for ovarian cancer.
Okay.
This is a much larger scale validation over a much longer time frame in larger cohorts of blood samples. And we're also starting at the minute to continue our platform development. So we're beginning to kind of utilize our bespoke biomarker pipeline to begin development for early warning tests of other disease indications. We've just got a grant to begin that in a collaborative grant to begin that in pancreatic cancer. So we're starting to kind of scale and grow the company in the next year or so, which is very exciting.
So I guess the scaling opportunities are then other things beyond ovarian cancer and what have you, once you've kind of... And in terms of, we talked about your kind of target market, et cetera, healthcare systems. Will that likely be to start with the NHS, or is it that you'll be going to the US or elsewhere where you've got more private kind of care, or how do you envisage that looking as you go to market in the next few years?
So we're starting with CE marking approval as the first kind of regulatory pathway that we're going for, and then look to get in some kind of EU regions which adopt new diagnostic tests earlier. And then alongside that, we'll be doing the kind of engaging with NICE to get into the NHS. That's just a bit of a longer process. And then
we know that we've been there. Yeah, we know how long that can take.
A different animal entirely in the NHS.
Absolutely.
And then we'll be looking to kind of do our MDSAP approval to get into Canada and Australia and Japan and Brazil, and then doing the kind of US validation piece alongside that.
So, kind of you've been there. You've kind of been involved in a company from an early stage. As a CEO of an early stage company. So, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs and kind of people working in that early stage kind of area, particularly in the life sciences space, which we know is such a different sector to anything else kind of in the world? Kind of, what would your advice to be to those people looking to get in and starting their own organisation or starting an early stage business?
I kind of always had two pieces of advice that really helped me. One's a bit kind of more generic in that you're always kind of looking forward in the thoughts of, I need to do this, we need to get this finished, we're aiming for this goal, I need to develop myself in these areas. And it can get very overwhelming. But if you kind of take a moment and look back and appreciate kind of the small wins and see how far kind of you've came both yourself and as your company, even in a couple of months, I find it incredibly helpful and kind of works as a motivation that you've been able to do it before, and it kind of breaks those longer term aims into the shorter term goals.
It's a personal validation as well. You talked about scientific validation, but actually sometimes you need that personal validation or that commercial validation that actually you've done some good things, you've made progress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, definitely kind of that bit of motivation to keep you going.
Absolutely.
I think the kind of second one's particularly relevant for life sciences, and it was that every experiment's never going to work perfectly. So we work in PCR, and there's a saying that PCR stands for pipette, cry, repeat, which sometimes it feels like. But I think it was someone kind of always told me that it's very key to understand that everyone in life science experiences that. And it's more important to be kind of adaptable and innovative to work around those problems rather than, because every experiment's not going to work perfectly first time, but it's not just you, and you'll be able to overcome it.
I think that's the same on the commercial side as well. You'll try things, you'll do things, and you know what? I mentioned it before, it's never a linear line, it's never straightforward, there's never a set formula, otherwise everyone would do it. And it's, you do have to learn from mistakes, you learn from what doesn't work, and sometimes you have to give things a go and see if it'll work or not. And it's kind of having that faith in what you're doing, I guess.
Yeah. Caroline actually told me once that you need to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, which is definitely good advice.
And I guess particularly as a CEO of a business, etc., you're the one that is the face of the organisation. You're the one going out doing presentations, doing pitching and things, and that's not necessarily a skill that everyone finds natural. And you've got to embrace those things, and kind of it's part of the job, I guess.
Yeah, just kind of feeling uncomfortable, but comfortable with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So away from the day job, away from the all-consuming day job that you have as in what you're doing. Who are you? In these podcasts, we like to bring to life the people behind our investee companies and what we're doing. It's not just about kind of the science, etc. So what are your interests away from work?
So I love sport. Probably my key interest. Kind of playing or watching any kind of sport, really.
Yep.
Maybe kind of wisely or not, I'm the hockey captain for our local team. So that takes up quite a lot of my time, kind of organising the team and the matches.
Yep.
But I'm a very big advocate for the positive effects of team sport, kind of on mental health. So always looking forward to the training and match days, which is great. I play a bit of piano as well, which is always a great de-stressor at the end of the day. Kind of you can go into your own little world with it. And I really enjoy.
What's your go-to tune then? What's a stressful day at work? What's the first thing you kind of you play?
Actually, quite funny being from Northern Ireland. Probably Chasing Cars, the Snow Patrol one. Is always a good one to calm down.
Good, nice tune.
Yeah. And I quite enjoy languages, so I try to do a language class every year, kind of since leaving school. So this semester I'm doing a Spanish for business class, which is great fun. Which is quite apt as well. It's hopefully will be helpful going forward too.
Well, I was going to say that would be very useful, kind of going into foreign markets and explaining what you're doing. So you're going to have to learn all the scientific terms in Spanish as well. There, that's the only problem. That's the rod for your back you've made there. Yeah. Very good. And do languages stick? Because I'm appalling at languages. I can never remember things. If I go to Italy for a week, I can get past and order things. And then if I came back, if I went again 6 months later, I'd have forgotten everything that I picked up in that week. I'm atrocious. But is it something that just sticks with you, or is it just
I really, really enjoy languages. So I kind of, when I was doing my A-levels, I did the 2 sciences and 2 languages, and I sort of didn't really know which one I wanted to do.
Fair enough.
So I've always really enjoyed them. So although it's definitely gone downhill since I left school, it's something I need to kind of keep up the practice of it. That's
fair enough. That's good. So then the question we ask all of our guests on the Deepbridge Discovery Podcast is about the Deepbridge dinner party. If you can invite 3 guests, dead or alive, no friends or family, because we don't want to offend anybody, who would you be inviting to the Deepbridge dinner party, and why would you be inviting them?
So the first one I'd probably like to invite would be Rosalind Franklin. So she kind of was the one that discovered that DNA is the double helix structure, and has really kind of paved the way for an incredible amount of research, and so many therapies that we avail of today are based on that. And she really excelled in science and research, getting grants, and kind of a time where it still wasn't fully accepted for women to do that. And she worked in universities in several countries across the world. And she was really a trailblazer over time in research. And she actually died of ovarian cancer when she was 37. So she achieved an incredible amount in a short time. So I think it would be very inspiring to have her at the dinner party.
And also, when you talk about scientists in particular, when something that they've not necessarily discovered or they've eloquently put into language, etc., becomes normally spoken about. I mean, DNA now is, everyone listening to this will know kind of, or understand what you mean by DNA, will understand what it is, etc. So those people that kind of almost at the forefront and the spearhead of that kind of thinking must be fascinating to kind of speak to those guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite often when we're in the lab doing experiments, I sort of always think, how did anyone ever find out that this is how you did it? But what did they go through to be able to identify that? Would be fascinating.
I mean, just on a very basic level, the fact that you could send off a DNA kit now to find out your ancestry and who you're related to and things like that, it's just it's mind-boggling science, isn't it? I guess. If you think about it, Right. So that's number 1. That's great. So number 2, who's your second guest you're inviting?
Number 2 is probably quite a generic one, but I'd love to meet David Attenborough. His voice, you could just sit and listen to him for hours anyway. But I'd imagine he has some fascinating stories. I really love that he uses his platform now and really kind of highlights and educates how climate change is affecting the entire world, kind of from plants and the smallest animals to the biggest in humans, and how something that happens in kind of one part of the world affects climate change in another. And I think he's able to capture that really well and be very educating. I think it'd be fascinating to talk to.
But he also talks about the science behind it as well, which as a scientist yourself must be fascinating, because he makes a lot of the science around things like that very simple for lay people like myself to understand. So that must be a fascinating conversation where I can imagine he goes into much greater depth with somebody who's on more of an equal like you are than me. But that'd be a fascinating conversation.
I think it'd just be fascinating. I think it'd have so many different topics to talk about as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. And number 3, who's your third person?
My third one is a bit of a different one. I actually spoke about him a bit earlier, but Snow Patrol. I'd love to meet Gary Lightbody. One, I love their music, but also from the kind of the Northern Ireland perspective. He does a lot of work to bring kind of Northern Ireland together and forward. But he really supports kind of Northern Irish talent and donates a lot of money to music programs and kind of brings young Northern Ireland artists on tour with him. And he does a lot of work in supporting charities in Northern Ireland. So kind of his last birthday, he donated, I think it was maybe £70,000 to local food banks for his birthday present, which is amazing. So I'd love to be able to chat with him.
No, that'd be fascinating. Again, somebody who's renowned for doing so much for the region is phenomenal. Yeah, great. Excellent. Well, look, that's I'm conscious of time and conscious of eating into your day. You've got lots of things to do. So thank you very much for your time, Shannon. Really appreciate it. It's great to catch up. And some of these bits, we've kind of had this conversation previously when we've met and things. And I think it was over at Guinness last time. But it's nice to get these kind of on record and to share kind of our ramblings with other people. So I'm doing the rambling, you're doing the eloquent bit. So that's good. But no, really appreciate your time, Shannon. And thank you very much for joining us.
No problem. No, thank you very much again. It's good to chat to you.
Thank you for joining us. If you have any subjects you'd like us to cover in future podcasts, then please email us at discovery@deepbridgecapital.com. This podcast was brought to you by Deepbridge Capital LLP. Deepbridge is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Please note that investments discussed are both illiquid and high risk and won't be suitable for all investors and should be considered as part of a diversified portfolio. The content of this podcast should not be construed as financial or taxation advice. We recommend investors seek appropriate professional financial advice. Any views expressed may no longer be current and may have already been acted upon.